Guys, welcome back to a new YouTube video. So today what I thought I would do is give a bit of an overview as to what I actually use my iPad for and what apps I actually use to support the functions of what I use my iPad for. So this is currently an iPad Air 3rd generation, which I absolutely love. I was only saying to a friend just last week that I essentially use my iPad for everything but game development, and that's simply because we don't have game engines that run on the type of architecture that's in portable devices at the moment. But given the fact that Apple are making so many leaps ahead with the iPad with regards to things like keyboard support, the Apple Pencil support, just recently we're seeing the update where you can actually use a mouse with your iPad. I tend to think that with time we might see some changes in that space, but what that looks like yet, who knows. But looking at my iPad, just opening it up, you can see that I have I've taken full advantage of the folders. So you can see that I have productivity, I have photo and video, entertainment, music, and work. So outside of that, the apps are pretty self-explanatory for basically what they are. My main apps are down here in the taskbar, what you can see. So they're probably the most highly used apps. But what we're going to do is we're going to look at productivity. So productivity, essentially what I use this for is basically all things related to myself. So you've got basic things in here like the calendar, the clock, Wikipedia, because Wikipedia is always used. You're always Wikipediaing things for questions that you want to know the answer to, or at least that's what I do. I have things like Sprite Something in here. Sprite Something is essentially what I use for my game development. I have Notability. Notability is an absolutely brilliant app. I think it costs something like $15 Australian. But you can use this app for a wide range of things. I use this app for both work and personal stuff. I tend to use Notability more than I use the Notes app. Some other apps I have in here is, you'll notice I have both Apple Maps and Google Maps. Out of the two, I use Google Maps more than Apple Maps, but Apple Maps is pretty cool. I love the functionality that is built in with things like the Apple Watch, and it has improved a lot over time. It's gotten a lot better since its first inception. Its first dabble was an absolute nightmare. Then I have some education-focused apps, Udemy and Skillshare. So these apps are kind of similar. They are a little bit different. So with apps like Udemy, essentially you pay for a course. So say for instance, I've signed up for a game development course. That costs about $30. Once I pay that $30, that's my course. I own it. I can use it anytime I want. Whereas Skillshare essentially uses a subscription service. So you basically pay a fee each month and you've got access to a wide range of different classes. So both of them kind of have their pros and cons. But either way, they're both really, really great apps because they're really handy if you want to learn a new skill, if you want to sort of brush up on a skill, if you want to get better at a certain skill. So for instance, like photo editing, video editing, game design, anything art related. There's a ton of different courses that you can take on there, and that can help you both in your personal development and say for instance in the workplace as well. So leading on from there, we have photo and video. So these are typically very visual focused apps, as you can assume. So starting off, we have Procreate. Procreate, simply hands down, one of the best apps you can essentially have for graphic design. If you're interested in sketching, the functionality of this app is beautiful. It is so easy to use, really, really fun. There is a stack ton of different brushes that you can actually use. It uses filters, it uses layers, it uses touch-ups. It simply falls into a lot of different categories, and it's a brilliant app. I'd recommend it for anyone who has an interest in sketching, drawing, or is just a creative person in general. Next up with that, we have Adobe Lightroom, which is pretty self-explanatory. Quick, sharp photo editing. I love Adobe Lightroom. I love it both on my iPhone and my iPad, but I do like using it on my iPad a little bit more because you can actually use the Apple Pencil to highlight certain areas, to draw on certain areas, and make really specific tweaking to your photos, where you can't really do that on your iPhone as well. I have LumaFusion. Fun fact, I'm actually editing this video using LumaFusion, and for those of you that don't know what LumaFusion is, it is probably the best mobile video editing app. Some people have actually put it in the same category as Final Cut Pro, which is a big claim, I know, but LumaFusion is really, really cool. So basically it can handle anything. It can handle 4K 60 frames a second easily on this iPad. It can churn out content really easily. It's a really intuitive app in terms of how to use it. It's very straightforward, and you can actually do quite a lot with it. I think it cost about $30 Australian, so it did cost some money, but again, well worth it. I have the Photos app, which is pretty self-explanatory, just a collection of all the photos that I take. YouTube Studio, again, that's a pretty self-explanatory one. It just keeps track of YouTube and metrics and things like that and comments. And then we have Photoshop on the iPad. So this is only really quite new. Basically, this is, it's a little bit buggy. I wouldn't say that it's super polished, but I think with updates coming out over time, I think it is getting a lot better. There is certain things that you can't do in Photoshop on iPad. So for instance, like when you're adding certain effects and things, it won't actually let you in this version, but I wouldn't be surprised if more functionality comes to it with later updates. Next, we have entertainment, and this is very straightforward. You've got apps in here like Netflix, Stan, Optus Sport, F1, Premier League, Disney Plus. I'm a massive streaming junkie, you can already tell that. And then I have some fun games in here that I just play from time to time. So Stardew Valley, that's a really cool game. I don't know why I have Tennis Champs in there. I think I must have downloaded that when the Australian Open was on or something and everyone had tennis fever. And Streets of Rage, which is a really old school Sega game, which I really enjoy. Then moving up here, we have music. So basically every Apple device comes with GarageBand built into it, essentially. And GarageBand is a lot of fun. I've heard a lot of people that basically slag it off and say, oh, GarageBand's crap and it's not really, you can't really do too much with it. I tend to disagree. I think it's really, really fun. You can basically mix and match all different types of sounds. I actually think it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it, and I use it all the time. I use it to create even music that I use in videos on YouTube. I think it's brilliant. So I absolutely love GarageBand. I've got two apps related to SoundCloud here. Pulse, which is essentially how you can manage your channel, and SoundCloud itself, where you can basically listen to music. And I don't really use SoundCloud that much, I gotta say, but I like to just have it there just in case if I want to explore certain types of music, certain genres of music. It's really nice to actually just log in and see what sort of content's being created, because there's so many cool creators out there. Then Beatmaker 3. So Beatmaker 3, it's basically GarageBand on steroids. You can do certain tweaks and certain things to tracks that you can't do on GarageBand. So for instance, if you want to do specific compression, filters, things like that, it's a very technical app, so you can do a lot more with your finished tracks in Beatmaker 3. But to be honest, I haven't fully wrapped my head around that app yet. So it's just there just to learn. Next up, we have work. So work is basically all things associated to my day job. So where I work, it's heavily reliant on Microsoft Office. So basically everything Microsoft Office related, you will see in here. Some of the most frequent apps I do use for both personal and work is Word. I find myself using Word actually quite a lot, whether it be writing scripts for YouTube channels, whether it be writing ideas down. I do actually use Word a lot. And the functionality for Microsoft Word, I do have to say, is so much better on the iPad these days. Like, so for instance, like with the keyboard, it works fine. It works really, really well. That can be said for PowerPoint. It can be said for Microsoft Excel as well. So I actually really do enjoy the Microsoft suite on the iPad. Never thought I would say that. And then of course down here in the taskbar, you've got apps that I use all the time. So Safari, web browser, hands down, use that all the time. Messenger for Facebook, I use that mostly to keep in touch with friends. I personally don't have a Facebook page, but I still use Messenger. iMessage as well. Again, self-explanatory communication. Apple Music, that's my streaming. That's the channel that that's the subscription service that I use for streaming. I did use Spotify for a while, but I migrated over to Apple Music probably about 12 months ago. Really enjoy it. News app. So news apps, I kind of switch. I'm kind of on a Apple News wavelength at the moment, but a few weeks ago I was using Google News. I kind of just switch in and out. Not that I really read the news heaps, but sometimes it's just nice just to plug in and see what's going on in the world. And then I have the Files app, and the Files app, I've got to say, I absolutely love it. Now that I actually know how it works properly, I use it all the time. Whereas previously it was a little bit of a tangled web when Apple first started doing this. It was a little bit confusing, but now it seems that they've really come ahead with that leaps and bounds, which is really nice. And then I have YouTube, and YouTube is of course very self-explanatory. So that's been it, guys. That's just a quick rundown of what I use my iPad for. I'm really excited for the future of the iPad. Apple, like I said earlier, they appear to just be making so many different strides with this device as time goes on, and like I said, I pretty much use it for everything. So if you have any comments, if you have any questions, if there's anything you want to know about any sort of apps that I've basically touched on, please feel free to leave a comment below. If you do enjoy the video, like it, it helps heaps. But if not, I will see you guys in the next one. See you later.